two cases, but I only printed out one motion.
It's okay.
They're identical?
It's okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this is Judge Alyssa Perez resuming the, criminal docket for August 2nd, 2023. All matters being heard today are being heard in accordance with all emergency orders and directives regarding COVID-19. I'll go ahead and call the cases 2021-0D03104 and 2021-0D03105. Each case styled the state of Texas versus Abdurazak Bukatmi. May I have announcements, please?
David Vandenberg on behalf of the state's ready.
Teresa Caballero on behalf of my client. We're ready, Your Honor.
And Ms. Caballero, you are in agreement with proceeding on this without your client's appearance?
Yes, and he's aware of the issue.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have this scheduled. This had been alluded to. Of course, there's been motions filed in each of these cases for discovery, production, and inspection of evidence of El Paso Police Department internal affairs records. Ms. Caballero, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So it's come to my attention that there was an internal affairs, at least one, if not two, maybe more investigations regarding the allegations central to this case and maybe other issues. And so I'm asking the state to produce the police department records regarding those investigations.
Okay. Mr. Vandenberg?
Well, the policy of this office is not to disclose these things to defense. We don't want to make it a habit that the defense would come to us for these things. They're readily available to the defense by the power of subpoena. So Ms. Caballero has had the opportunity to get this as well.
Well, let me start off with this. Is the state in possession of anything with respect to any investigations of the defendant, either internal affairs or otherwise, other than the case itself that you all have?
Yes, Your Honor, there is an internal affairs investigation, which is the basis for the criminal prosecution in this. So we are in possession of a report, yes.
I'm sorry, you said you were in possession of a report?
Yes, an investigative report from internal affairs.
Okay, and you're not turning it over to the defense? Why?
Again, I've been instructed, it's an office policy not to turn these internal affairs investigations of police agencies over to the defense.
How many, Ms. Caballero has referenced possibly multiple? Is there more than one investigation? Is it more than one case? What are we talking about?
There's one investigation over two cases, and these two cases are again, the basis of the two causes against the defendant. So we have two separate reporters, which are the same as the complaining witnesses in the two criminal causes again.
Okay.
So there, again, there's an internal investigation into the veracity of these things that went on, the alleged allegations, Your Honor.
Okay. And so you're saying it's an office policy? That's the basis for not disclosing those?
Yes, Your Honor. That's
okay. Ms. Caballero?
Well, I'm not sure how that gets a prosecutor's office around possible Brady violations. I mean, a police department records, I guess, are ostensibly subpoenaable by the defense, but I've heard through the grapevine that there was more than one, possibly more than two internal affairs investigations. I did send out a subpoena.
You're reading my mind. That was my next question. And I think, was it recent? I'm just trying to open one on
last week, Your Honor.
Okay.
And I've gotten some emails back today from the sheriff's department saying that some officers I've subpoenaed are no longer with the force, and I haven't done a cross-reference to see which ones they would be. And I did a general subpoena for any internal affairs investigations. But it's just outrageous to me that that would be office policy. I mean, just turn it over. Let me look at it. Let me look at it. Let me investigate it. Let me make my proper subpoenas. Let me prepare my cross-examination. So that's one issue. I am going to ask the court to order them to turn it over to me.
This was on July 26th. And so it was the sheriff's office. Was it the sheriff's office that did the internal affairs investigation? Is that what it is?
I believe it's the police department,
Yes, it's the police department. Your Honor.
but I sent my subpoenas through the sheriff's office.
Understood. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Am I looking pertaining to the arrest of Ruben Chacon? I'm looking at the subpoena that was issued on July 26th. And it's referencing records pertaining to the arrest of Ruben Chacon, case number 20.
There is a Ruben Chacon who's involved, Your Honor, who was part of there's all kinds of things that happened in one of the cases. So I did subpoena his arrest records from that day. My client was involved in a chase regarding someone at the alleged scene of the crime as an off-duty police officer. So I did subpoena his records as well.
So is there anything, have there been any disclosures, Mr. Vandenberg, with respect? I mean, I'm assuming you reviewed the IA investigation records.
I've reviewed most of them, not the complete set, Your Honor.
Okay.
As Caballero has mentioned that there might be potential Brady violations. Brady is required if there is anything which is exculpatory. And I have not seen anything in here which is exculpatory. Again, most of the information that I've read through here is based upon, the police reports are based upon this internal investigation. So there shouldn't be anything other than that in here.
Is there anything other, Mr. Vandenberg, other than your office's policy not to turn those over when they are in your possession? There's some other basis that you are not making those available?
No, none that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Caballero?
That's all on this issue, Your
Hmm.
Honor.
Okay. So for now, what I am going to require is that the state provide any and all records that the defense has requested to the court for in-camera inspection. I really don't have a good handle on what all you have, Mr. Vandenberg. And right now, you know, I don't know that an office policy trumps the basis for which Ms. Caballero is requesting this information. So you, the state shall turn those over to the court for an in-camera review of that information. When are we set for trial here? I mean, this could be
Next Thursday, Your Honor.
It's Thursday.
And so there were issues with the subpoena, Ms. Caballero?
I don't know, Your Honor. I got an email today from the sheriff's office that serves the subpoenas saying that certain officers that I had subpoenaed were no longer with the police department, and therefore my trying to subpoena them at the police department wasn't a proper address. They were saying retired. I don't know if the officers that I subpoenaed would have been involved in the internal affairs, but I do need to investigate their whereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
Officer Borrego is one.
All right. For now, that is going to be the order for now. I'm not ruling on whether they're going to be turned over or not. Part of my concern is to reconvene after an in-camera review, and part of my issue is scheduling because we're starting a trial tomorrow. So we're on a tight timetable. How long has the state been in possession of this documentation?
Approximately 30 days. I'd have to look at the exact number.
Okay, okay. All righty. And that more or less coincides with at least my memory of when Ms. Caballero initially at least voiced her request. It might have been slightly longer than that, but I'm not going to hold, that doesn't mean a whole lot. We have our final hearing plea deadline on the 8th. Ultimately, what are we looking at? I mean, this sounds to me like that even independent of the IA investigation, there's more work to be done here.
There may be. What we have here is some documentation, and there's everything on a thumb drive. If in order to disclose this to you, we could reproduce the thumb drive, get a copy to the court.
That's fine.
And we'll get that tomorrow morning.
Okay. But I'm going back to this, I'm going back to this trial setting. I'm just concerned this is not going to be ready.
Your Honor, originally the court had discussed trying this case in September. And, but then at some point it just was set for August. I'm not sure how that happened. But I think the September setting is more practical.
Even with now these issues, I think are going to be issues, or potentially more information, or potentially.
I need to find Officer Borrego, and I think there's an Officer Jaden.
Mr. Vandenberg, you were going to say something?
I think that's a good suggestion. I was going over the court's docket for the next 6 weeks, and there seems to be kind of a gap at the end of September where there's not a lot of settings at that point. So it's about 30 days out.
Okay, we'll look at that again. For now, Mr. Vandenberg, no, can you get it up? I mean, it's 3:45. Does it take a long time to burn or just print out the documents, put them in a manila folder?
I'll see if I can do it right now. The difficulty is the thumb drive, and with the IT people here, it's 3:45 right now. Sometimes they leave early, and they're the ones that have to do those things. We're not allowed to touch those things in terms of duplication because we'll screw it up. We got to get the IT people on it. If it's not today, I can get it tomorrow morning, first thing.
Your Honor, if I could alleviate the court's burden and put it on my shoulder, actually, even if all this were to work out overnight, the thumb drive, the in-camera inspection, my husband has just been scheduled for heart surgery next week, actually on the 10th. And so I was going to ask the court for leave to file a motion for continuance on this trial setting. My client, we've subpoenaed the case. We were ready. Aside from this issue, my client was lining up tickets for himself, his wife, and his sister-in-law.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I'm sorry to hear that. Is that also going to impact your ability to attend the final hearing plea deadline on the 8th?
If I can get out of town when I want to, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. In that case, please file your motion. Mr. Vandenberg, independent of that basis, I thought I understood that you were also in agreement with a reset potentially to September, but I'm not gonna hold to that because there are things that aren't apparent on our calendar that affect our scheduling. So I just need to know if the state is opposed to a continuance.
No, Your Honor, and I think it's very important for Ms. Caballero to get the documentation that the court orders that goes to her and have the time to review it thoroughly.
Okay. If you can get me those documents today, Ms. Caballero, please just file your motion for continuance. What I think, because we're going to be in trial, what I think is likely is that we're gonna have a minute before we agree on a new trial date. I don't know that I can get you September,
Okay.
but I'll try.
I'm not pressing for September. He's out on bond.
Yeah.
But that was the court's original thinking.
My thought
And-
is we're probably gonna go into March of 2024.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your time, Mr.
Thank you.
Vandenberg. Sooner the better.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.